Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines, presents this presidential citation to Alexandra Eala.
Eala breaks down in tears after receiving a presidential citation from Marcos. For one unforgettable moment inside the ceremonial hall of Malacañang Palace, time seemed to stand still. It was the evening of July 13th, 2026. The prestigious citation rested in her hands. The President of the Philippines stood proudly beside her. Cameras flashed, the audience watched in silence, and emotions filled the room. At just 21 years old, Alexandra Eala had already made history. Ranked world number 28, she had reached the highest ranking ever achieved by a Filipino tennis player. Yet despite competing on the biggest stages in the world, nothing had prepared her for this deeply personal moment. As she stepped forward to speak, her composure began to fade. Her voice trembled, her eyes filled with tears, and the emotion she had been holding back became impossible to hide. Only moments earlier, she had smiled and admitted that she usually never gets nervous when speaking in public. But standing inside the nation's presidential palace, receiving one of the country's highest recognitions, felt completely different. It was a moment that carried the weight of years of sacrifice, determination, and an entire nation's pride.
I normally do not get very nervous when I have to.
Tonight was different. For the first time in a long while, Eala admitted she was genuinely nervous. The cameras captured every second. Emotion shimmered in her eyes, her breathing grew unsteady, and the strength she had shown on countless tennis courts gave way to a deeply human moment that no one in the room would forget.
Today is the exception. I am pretty nervous, so thank you.
Behind her, First Lady Liza Araneda Marcos looked on quietly, while her parents, Riza and Mike Eala, watched proudly from just a few seats away. Standing beside her was President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who had only recently met the young tennis star. His warm smile reflected the significance of the moment as the nation honored one of its brightest athletes. That world number 28 ranking was far more than just a number. It represented years of sacrifice, relentless hard work, and a historic breakthrough for Philippine tennis. Just 9 days earlier, under the bright lights of Wimbledon's iconic center court, Eala had stunned the tennis world by defeating defending champion Iga Swiatek. She edged an unforgettable first-set tiebreak 7-6 before taking complete control of the match and closing it out 6-2, securing one of the biggest victories of her career and cementing her place in history. She advanced to the round of 16, becoming the first Filipino ever to reach that stage of a Grand Slam tournament. Her remarkable run ended in a hard-fought 3-set battle against Jasmine Paolini, who prevailed 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Even in defeat, Eala had already rewritten Philippine tennis history. When she returned home, another milestone awaited her. Within days, the rankings were updated, and Eala officially climbed to a career-high world number 28, the highest ranking ever achieved by a Filipino tennis player. Soon after, she received an invitation unlike any other. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. requested her presence at Malacañang Palace for a special state recognition. But what happened inside that grand ceremonial hall was far more extraordinary than most headlines revealed. There was no script for the occasion. The Philippines had celebrated legendary boxers, Olympic weightlifters, and world-class billiards champions before. But never in its history had the country welcomed a tennis player who had reached this level on the world stage. This was unfamiliar territory, even for the presidential palace. President Marcos acknowledged it with a lighthearted remark that instantly broke the formality of the ceremony. He joked that there wasn't really an established protocol for honoring someone like her. They were, in a way, creating the moment as they went, just so they could have the opportunity to celebrate and take a photo with the young champion. That single comment captured something much deeper than humor. It revealed that Eala had achieved something so unprecedented that the country's highest office had no existing tradition for recognizing it. History had arrived before the protocol did. The presidential citation itself was an official state honor, but even its wording reflected the uniqueness of her accomplishment. It recognized her as the first Filipino woman to achieve unprecedented success on the international professional tennis circuit, a description that had never before appeared in any Philippine state citation because no Filipino tennis player had ever reached these heights. In many ways, the nation was racing to catch up with a career that was already making history. Standing inside Malacañang Palace, Eala wasn't simply receiving an award. She was witnessing her country create a new chapter, one written specifically because of what she had accomplished. The significance of that evening becomes even clearer when viewed through three defining moments of her incredible journey. The first was Wimbledon. Eala arrived at the All-England club outside the world's top 40 and left as world number 28. During those unforgettable 2 weeks, she produced one of the tournament's biggest upsets by defeating defending champion Iga Swiatek in straight sets on center court. She etched a dramatic first-set tiebreak 7-6 before dominating the second set 6-2, announcing herself to the tennis world in spectacular fashion. She followed that historic victory by pushing Jasmine Paolini through an intense three-set battle in the round of 16. Although her Wimbledon campaign ended there, she had already become the first Filipino, man or woman, to ever reach the fourth round of a Grand Slam. That achievement alone changed the history of Philippine tennis forever. The second milestone was her rise in the rankings. World number 28 was not the result of one magical tournament. It was the reward for nearly 2 years of consistent progress. Earlier in 2026, Eala broke into the top 50 after an impressive run at the ASB Classic in Auckland. She then captured her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara before winning another WTA 125 championship in Birmingham, defeating her doubles partner Nikola Bardankova in the final. By mid-season, her record reflected the consistency of a genuine elite player. She had accumulated dozens of victories, earned significant prize money, and firmly established herself among the world's top 30. This was no longer the story of an underdog surprising the tennis world. This was the story of a rising star whose greatest achievements might still be ahead. But the most powerful part of the ceremony had nothing to do with rankings, trophies, or statistics. It was about family. When Eala stepped up to speak, she chose not to focus on victories or records. Instead, she remembered the man who first introduced her to tennis, her late maternal grandfather and first coach, Roberto "Bobby" Maniego, whom she lovingly called Papa Lolo. She recalled those simple afternoons at Manila's Rizal Memorial Sports Complex, where she trained after school with her brother under her grandfather's patient guidance. Then she shared a memory that instantly touched millions of Filipinos. She remembered arriving at practice wearing ruffled socks, flashing light-up shoes, and carrying the carefree smile of a little girl who simply loved to play tennis. In a room filled with government officials and national leaders, that childhood memory became the emotional heart of the evening. It reminded everyone that behind the world rankings, international victories, and national honors was once a young girl chasing tennis balls with her grandfather, long before anyone imagined she would one day stand inside Malacañang Palace, making history for an entire nation. It wasn't a rehearsed emotional moment. It was a heartfelt tribute to the people who believed in her long before the world knew her name. President Marcos then did something few heads of state ever do. For a brief moment, he set aside the formality of his office and spoke not as a president, but as a genuine admirer. With a smile, he admitted that he was a fan of Eala. He even joked that he hoped one day he could watch her compete in person, or simply watch one of her practice sessions. It was a remarkably personal moment, one that reflected not protocol, but sincere appreciation for what the young tennis star had achieved. He went on to praise not only her victories, but the humility and grace with which she had handled them. According to him, Alex had brought immense pride to the Philippines, not just because she was winning on the world's biggest stages, but because she represented the very best qualities of the Filipino people. Then came the words that defined the entire evening. He said that Eala had reminded Filipinos of what their nation was capable of producing. He assured her that millions of Filipinos were standing behind her, cheering for her success, and publicly promised that if there was anything the government could do to support her journey, she only needed to ask. It was more than applause. It was a national commitment made in front of the country. The Presidential Citation itself reflected that historic recognition. It honored Eala for becoming the first Filipino woman to achieve unprecedented success on the international professional tennis circuit. It praised her exceptional talent, unwavering determination, and perseverance, while recognizing her ability to inspire a new generation of Filipino athletes through discipline, dedication, and hard work. The citation also acknowledged that her achievements had brought pride, honor, and joy to the Filipino nation. Every sentence carried weight because every sentence described something that had never before been written about a Filipino tennis player. Inside the ceremonial hall were the people who had helped shape her journey. Philippine Sports Commission Chairman Patrick Pato Gregorio witnessed the occasion. Her agent, Carter Lynn, stood nearby, while her parents, Mike and Riza Eala, proudly watched their daughter receive one of the nation's highest recognitions. As the president handed her the framed citation, applause echoed throughout the hall. Alex held the award tightly, smiled through her emotions, and for a few unforgettable seconds seemed almost overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. That image would become one of the defining photographs of Philippine sports in 2026. But Alex Eala's rise means far more than one emotional ceremony. For decades, tennis occupied only a small place in the Philippines' sporting landscape. Boxing produced icons like Manny Pacquiao. Weightlifting celebrated Olympic champion Hidilyn Diaz. Basketball became part of the country's identity. Tennis had talented juniors and promising players, but it had never produced someone who could climb into the world's top 30. Alex changed that. Her success has the potential to reshape how tennis is viewed across the country. Young children may now dream of becoming professional tennis players. More parents may encourage their sons and daughters to pick up a racket. Sports programs may invest more heavily in courts, coaching, and player development. One athlete can change an entire sporting culture. That is the true significance of reaching world number 28. When President Marcos publicly promised government support, he wasn't simply congratulating a champion. He was opening a door that had never truly existed for Philippine tennis. Whether that promise leads to greater investment in the months ahead remains to be seen, but the message itself was historic. For the first time, the nation's highest office openly recognized that Philippine tennis deserved a place alongside the country's most celebrated sports. The journey that brought Alex Eala to Malacañang was anything but easy. Only 6 months earlier, she had returned to the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex for the Philippine Women's Open, a tournament held on the same courts where her grandfather had first taught her the game. It was an emotional homecoming. She dedicated the tournament to her beloved Papa Lolo, hoping to honor his memory where it all began. Instead, she suffered a heartbreaking quarterfinal defeat. For many athletes, moments like that become painful memories. For Alex, it became another chapter in a much larger story. Months later, she stood inside Malacañang Palace speaking about those very same courts, remembering the grandfather who first believed in her while accepting recognition from the President of the Philippines. That wasn't simply redemption. It was proof that great careers are built not by avoiding disappointment, but by continuing forward after it. And that brings the story back to where it began. A young woman standing inside the ceremonial hall of Malacañang Palace. A framed presidential citation in her hands. A voice filled with emotion. A nation watching history unfold. At only 21 years old, Alex Eala represents far more than a record or a ranking. She represents a new possibility for Philippine sports. She has expanded the nation's vision of what a Filipino athlete can achieve, on what stage, and in which sport. The country had never needed a protocol for honoring a tennis player like her because no Filipino had ever reached these heights before. Now it does. And her journey is only beginning. With another major tournament waiting on the calendar, Alex leaves not only as one of the world's best tennis players, but as the face of a new era for Philippine tennis. She carries with her the support of an entire nation, a presidential citation created for a truly historic achievement, and the hopes of millions who now believe that even greater milestones are still ahead. The next chapter has already begun, and if her career so far is any indication, the biggest moments may still be waiting.